Does your team just need to get out and play a game, or do you think they need more time on the practice field?
Oh, I think they need both. Our team is working hard on the practice field. Our execution on game day doesn't show it yet in the consistent manner it needs to for us to take a jump. Bits and pieces, plays here and there, a drive or two, but not from first quarter to fourth quarter. Practice can move you forward to a certain point. Playing games has to happen for you to then finish from that point to the final point. We need both. And great that we have another game this fast, but another great opponent. Challenging game, but necessary. And whether this will be the breakthrough, whether it'll be next week, whatever it is, the process that we're going through will define our football team.
How confident are you going into the Central Florida game?
I would say that I'm very confident in who our players are, how they'll try, how they'll respond, and why they're playing. How they'll play, we're still searching. We're still searching for the execution in all phases that would equal championship football, elite football, top-tier football. And we're probably a game or two or three away from being exactly there. Could it be like Ole Miss, find a way to win by one? Could it be like Texas, where we're that close to finding a way almost at the end? Or through 2.5 quarters maybe of our Utah game, which is really what I believe the game would be like to the end. But we also know we're also vulnerable to mistakes that could easily change the outcome, and pretty drastically in a very short amount of time. And where we are, we'll find out again tomorrow. We'll take that, learn from it, and apply it the next week while we're trying to build and continue the resolve of this team.
What was on your mind as you were driving home in the wee early hours of Sunday morning?
I had a lot better idea of where our football team was, and I was thankful for that, but it was painful to think the ball had been turned over 7 times. I'm not sure I've ever coached in a game where we turned the ball over 7 times, 2 of which were for touchdowns and 2 on the 6-yard line and 3-yard line, so basically a 28-point swing on half the turnovers, and the others certainly had their own influence. And that was disappointing to me. Those things are correctable, and I'm anxious to get them corrected as soon as possible. And my hope is that I've been able to lead this week, and our coaching staff has been able to lead in a manner for that to be transparent, to show against an opponent. And if it isn't, then it's clearly my responsibility, and only mine, to coach our staff and coach our players to then make that better in a short amount of time, as we don't have that many games.
How does that trickle down then? You said you yourself had things you needed to improve on. How does that trickle down to the other coaches and then to the athletes?
Oh, hopefully it does trickle down, but that trickle down is a choice. I'm not a coach that screams, that yells, that curses, that swears, that berates. I'm a coach that teaches and educates and provides options. And if you have the right people, they choose to get on board and they work like crazy to do the things they're asked to do. So I've asked our coaches and our staff to do very specific things to help our team move forward, and then they'll either do that or not.
You've never lost consecutive home games as the head coach. How
Really?
important is it?
Wow.
Really, you've never lost consecutive home games. So you don't want that to happen tomorrow, but why is it so important to win at home?
Oh, I like the reward for the fans. I mean, so many do support us and support us well and unconditionally. We have our share that like to find fault as well, like any fan base. But I like the idea that it can bring a community together, and they can celebrate something that they have in common, that they believe in, that they like to cheer for. And when you play well, it just kind of uplifts a community.
When you make the kind of mistakes that you made last week, is it more important just to try to correct those within yourselves and your own program, or preparing for the next opponent? I mean, how do you weigh those two?
You have to do both, especially on a game week where you have one less day. And so you address them, you make them very clear that these were the mistakes, this is how you correct them. Then really you have to work on correcting those while you're preparing for the next opponent. You don't have time to then wait to prepare until you get those fixed. If you did that, it'd be hard to prepare for anyone. So you have to acknowledge and work on those things all at the same time.
What concerns you then about Central Florida?
Their quarterback. Central Florida has a quarterback that can create. He's very fast, he's very quick, he's very mobile, he's very elusive. And Central Florida as a football team is very sound defensively, very similar to, I would say, the Texas Ole Miss type of personnel. And then they've won a lot of football games recently, like we have. So, experienced quarterback, good football team coming off a great season a year ago, very strong personnel. And again, they're coming off a loss, which I'm not sure how that'll affect them, but our approach is right now a lot more about us than who we're playing.
Why were you back in the coach's polo shirt last week? You looked uncomfortable wearing that again.
No, I basically did it to be more similar to the players. They were been wearing their Band of Brothers shirts under their jerseys. And so I wore my Band of Brothers shirts under my jersey, so to speak. And it was just to make us more of the same.
You going to do that again this week? Or?
I don't know. You know, it's the idea by that isn't to provide a distraction of any sort. The idea is just simply to let the players know that I support them first. And so it wasn't anything other than just trying to make sure they know that that's who I support and that I'm with them.
How hungry was your team this week in practice to get back on the field and get a win?
They're still building up to be hungry. They were disappointed, frustrated through probably Wednesday. Still working, but disappointed and frustrated. And now I think there's some signs of hungriness, eagerness, and anxiousness to do something about it. Ideally, you'd like that to happen immediately because of how they played and the nature of that game. It took longer, and right. I'm not sure rightly so would be the right word to say, but understandably so.
It was the worst home loss ever against Utah for BYU. How long is that going to sting, that loss?
Well, it's I haven't thought about it really since we started preparing for Central Florida on Monday. That's a personal choice. If people want to dwell on it and linger, and if they love statistics and want to say that that day will go down in history as the darkest day, etc. Quite frankly, I've applied the lessons that I needed to learn, and I won't ever look back. I'm on to Central Florida, and that's where we're going.
Is it fair to say that last week, though, wasn't really indicative of your team? You really made more mistakes than you normally would, that was really kind of a low point?
I would hope so. I would hope it's not indicative. The first 2 weeks of how we played said that it's not indicative. If we play as we did against Utah this week and then the next week and the next week, then it would be indicative. My hope is it's one time only, that you turn the ball over that many times and make that many miscues in the same football game. I don't think I've coached a game since I've been the head coach that's had that many. And so it was quite a surprise knowing at halftime I believe we'd win the game and probably win by a touchdown or two. And so to have played a half and then have those feelings and have it end in a different way, very hard to predict. And so I'm still learning this team.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
All right, thanks a lot.